Yes, each of them could win a World Series, but for each, there is a fatal flaw. So we'll be the eternal pessimists today, the party poopers, the buzzkills, and we will limit just to one fatal flaw for each team. Who should we dig in on? Which one of these four teams do we want to start with? The Dodgers, maybe, because they're the toast of the town in the West?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, they're terrible, right? They're on pace to win 113 games. But if we're nitpicking, I think we're going to look at rotational depth.
Yeah. Look, they've got their three big arms on the IL right now, and they expect to have May, Kershaw, and Buehler back for the fall. But without those guys, it's a kind of a middle-of-the-rotation hodgepodge, with Julio Urias being the notable exception. They've got great returns from Tyler Anderson and Tony Gonsolin, but Mike, as you know better than any of us, it's different in the fall.
It sure is, and I think it's, if you match up, let's say, against the Mets, who has the advantage? DeGrom versus Anderson, Urias versus Scherzer, Gonsolin versus, let's go with a Carrasco-Bassett combo. That's where I think it gets skewed one way. However, that rotational depth can become an absolute strength if those guys come back, because what we saw from Justin Verlander, if Dustin May can be anything remotely for what we saw before Tommy John, that's a special arm. We know Buehler and Kershaw can do their thing, but he might be the linchpin to being that guy that was like, wow, we got another guy that throws 100?
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Just to talk about it, because it's the Dodgers and they are so good, I would say their biggest flaw to me might be the bullpen. I mean, Craig Kimbrell has been okay this year, but we've seen him in situations at times where he loses it. They have Blake Trinan coming back at some point this month, hopefully, which will help that back end. Brewster Graterol is also on the IL. I don't see a lot of arms in that bullpen right now that are healthy that I would trust late in games, late in the season, or in October. So it might be another area where they could have a problem.
Well, speaking of bullpens, and if we're going to identify one potentially fatal flaw for each of the 70-plus win teams, back to the Mets, it seems they've had some difficulty getting the ball into the hands of their closer, Edwin Diaz. Now, they didn't have any difficulty this week because that entire rotation went through a terrific turn. Carrasco last night, and what happened today, finishing out this series. But the bridge to the back of the bullpen has been a little bit wonky for them.
Yeah, look, Adam Ottavino's been pretty good this year, but it's another guy that you never know when it's going to go. His control at times, his walk rate is way down this year, much lower than it's been throughout his career. I don't know if I can trust that, and I see that being a problem. May, he just came back off the IL, but he hasn't looked good so far. Joely Rodriguez has had serious issues so far this year, particularly against left-handers, which is why they got him. We've seen Seth Lugo ride that roller coaster, and Michael Givens, I like the acquisition, but none of these guys scream shut down, eighth inning, hand the ball to Edwin Diaz. But Edwin Diaz in itself has been maybe the best pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
I would say my one note is they don't have that one lefty that you can come in that can shut down the perennial left-handed bat in the other lineup. Like if Bryce Harper's up with runners on second and third, or a runner on third, like who is that guy? Who's that Mets reliever that you can count on to get that out? Now, I think what Buck Showalter's going to do, you kind of go with the hot hand, but I don't think you really want to be in that situation because the hot hand is all relative until he has one bad outing. I do think the depth of their starting rotation, if DeGrom is healthy, you can basically put the sixth pitcher into that kind of long bullpen mode and kind of play off of that. So we'll see how it works. I mean, we're splitting hairs here. These four teams are outstanding.
There's
but,
no doubt. It's a good disclaimer to put out there.
The one thing I'll say about this bullpen when it comes to the playoffs, and you don't know how these guys are going to perform, but there's a really good chance that David Peterson and Tyler McGill are a part of that bullpen. Again, we're talking about guys who are healthier with the team. Peterson is down in AAA right now, and McGill is on the IL. But if those guys are a part of that bullpen, that could be your lefty.
Sure.
This guy can throw a 97, 98 in there sometimes, David Peterson. And Tyler McGill at the beginning of the season was maybe their best pitcher.
Yep.
I mean, I see him out of the bullpen throwing maybe 98, 99. It could be a different story. So that could become a real strength for them, which is why I think that Mets team is really positioned well right now.
Let's go to the Yankees now as we continue identifying a potentially fatal flaw for the teams with the four best records in the sport. And the way the Yankees lost today, they got 4 hits in Seattle, 2 homers. That was the only time they scored. That's been the Yankees' biggest problem this year. And again, as Mike said earlier, we're really splitting hairs because the Yankees are on a historic pace. It's a really good team, very capable of winning a World Series. However, when they don't homer, they're beatable. They do not have the ability to string together consecutive knocks for sustained rallies. One on, one off doesn't happen very often. What does happen a lot is the homer. And 53% of their runs have come via homers this year. That's the highest percentage in the sport.
You know, and I think that tends to talk about when you are a streaky team. And when you're on a good streak, I think you need the help, because when Stanton's on fire, Judge is otherworldly. When you get Stanton back, and I think Matt Carpenter's injury has absolutely changed the complex of that lineup. They can be pitched to. I think the keys to that lineup are the DJ LeMahieus, the guys that work the count, shoot the ball the other way, to then put the pressure. So if you do hit the long ball, it's 3 of them. It's not just a solo shot. So that's a pretty good graphic right there, that they're the highest percentage of runs scored by a home run are the Yankees, because you're going to be facing a pretty good starting staff no matter who it is in the postseason.
Yeah. This team has been known for something like that over the last couple of years. The one thing I will say is they don't strike out as much this year. So that's a really big part of why, look, you get a couple of guys on, you slap a couple balls the other way, whether it's DJ LeMahieu, IKF, even Josh Donaldson. He's been hitting some home runs lately, but early he was more or less, hitting, kind of trying to hit for average. I think that lineup, they just don't run that deep when you have an injury to a Stanton and things like that. And that's what really creates some flaws. I would say they probably have the most flaws out of all these teams right now, because when I look at that bullpen, I have a lot of questions back there. Clay Holmes has been great for the most part this year, but he's run into a little bit of a stumble lately. Chapman, we've seen him go through his troubles this year. Are they going to get like Zach Britton back at some point late this year? It's still kind of up in the air. Michael King going down was really bad.
Huge.
Really big loss for them. And Jonathan Loáisiga, a great year last year, but he just hasn't looked the same at all this year. So I think that team has some flaws. Sending Jordan Montgomery away, look, they brought in Frankie Montas. That's great, but those top 3, whether it's Cole, maybe Nestor Cortez, or Frankie Montas, after that even gets a little bit weak, I would say, because you don't know what you're going to get from Domingo Germán, and is Luis Severino going to be okay when he gets back off the IL? So the team's got a lot of holes right now.
Let's finish this conversation with the Astros. And again, notable disclaimer, Houston running away with the AL West yet again. They're really good. And if we're going to pick at it a little bit, there aren't many teams that are great 1 through 9, but there's a noticeable drop-off in returns once you get into the bottom of that Houston batting order. Some of this is position-based, right? Center field and catcher are not real offensive positions for the way the Astros are built right now. And with Jeremy Pena, when he was hurt, his shortstop was kind of a problem. I mean, are we really being a little too harsh on the Astros here to say this is a potentially fatal flaw?
Well, I think we are, because I think Christian Vázquez, that acquisition, kind of helps that.
Yep.
But I'll defer to Anthony, because when I'm looking at a lineup and you can breathe a little bit in the bottom third, you can kind of pitch around 5 and 6, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge advantage when you can get to the bottom of the lineup and basically say to your pitcher, okay, maybe we could take a blow right here. We can attack these
when there's
guys.
That big of a drop-off.
100%. Yeah. But like you said, Christian Vázquez coming over, that might change the dynamic. Trey Mancini coming over, that might change the dynamic, especially when they do get a Michael Brantley back off the IL. This team, I don't know if I would consider them even having a flaw right now, because defensively in center field, they still get good numbers out there. And so realistically, to me, like, if that's your biggest hole,
you can hide.
Yeah, that's okay. I think this team, that bullpen's very good. The rotation, we know. They're getting Lance McCullers back soon. Really good.
And I think everybody would be pretty happy if the 4 teams we just mentioned meet in the LCS.
Yes.
Some combination of that in the World Series.
Great
right?
series.
That's right. The Yankees, by the way, with their loss, have conceded top record in the American League to the Astros.
They're not even the best team in their own city. Oh, man. Right off the Yankees. Write them off.
Shots fired on the Wednesday MLB Tonight.